G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. As you can see, I have a black foot and I have a white foot. I have one foot in either camp. This will be a malt liquor video conducted at 1.7 standard drunks to the bottle, which is 5.8% alcohol. Therefore, label out, as they say. According to the canons, this is a malt liquor video. And there she blows, and down she goes. Okay, so what's this particular malt liquor video about? Well, I want to talk about the prissy dunce erect Tronald Dump, who will be screwed into place. That's what inaugurated means. An auger is a screw. To inaugurate somebody means to screw them into place. So prissy dunce erect Tronald Dump will be screwed into place in 18 days' time, 20th of January. And I want to expound my own personal hypotheses, theories perhaps, as to why Tronald Dump was able, to pardon the language, why Tronald Dump was able to mind fuck muddled America into voting to have him lead them unto the destruction of dumb fuckistan. Why was it so? How is it that Tronald Dump, the spoiled brat son of a multi-millionaire who went to Wharton College of Business and Administration, spelt the same way as my family name, like the Whartons who stayed in England, they were engineers. The Whartons who came to Australia were engineers and teachers and preachers. The Whartons who went to America, they became professional high-grade money grubbers. They excelled at the theory of making money by earning money, and rough, forgive that. They excelled at making money by manipulating the money they already owned and the forces that it created within socio-economic milieu that they moved in. Okay, so Tronald Dump was the spoiled brat son of a fat cat trendy money grubbing arsehole who squandered vast sums on his education and set him out there with a big nest egg and expected him to do well in business, and every time Tronald Dump failed, Daddy bailed him out. Tronald Dump lost so much money that he hasn't had to pay any taxes for 18 years because of how much money he'd already previously lost. He's not a great businessman. He is a great publicist. He's spent years on American free-to-air television making himself popular by snarling "you're fired" at people. He's on his third wife. He never served in Vietnam. He's the quintessential self-promoter. He believes his own bullshit. He doesn't care what the facts are because he knows that public opinion can be swayed at a whim and a gesture. And why is it possible for Tronald Dump to become erected as prissy dunce of the excited states of Norte armed Americano? I have two words: Ronald Reagan Zap. Ronald is one word, Reagan Zap is another word. Now here's how it goes. And I've been surprised the number of people who don't know and under can stumble this story. Once upon a time, the United States Congress required all newspapers with state or national reach penetration, syndication, readership, all state or national sized newspapers, as well as all state or national sized radio stations and television stations in the excited states of Norte Americano, they had to limit their news and editorial content to that which was provable as being true by the best known science at the time. So you couldn't publish an editorial that said the moon was made of green cheese in 1979 because Ronnie Reagan hadn't been in office long enough. But one of the things Ronnie Reagan did around about 1980, early 80s, was to repeal the congressional requirement for American broadcasters to tell the truth in their news and editorial material. And this was done after being petitioned on the grounds of freedom of speech, because it was considered to be an imposition and a limitation on the freedom of speech of the people who owned shares and directed the executives of the stations and the newspapers. And when that occurred, a couple of things went on. One of them was that Prince Rupert the Mudraker, Rupert Murdoch, he applied for American naturalised citizenship because he recognised that he could make more money if he was a naturalised American citizen and therefore permitted to buy more TV stations, radio stations and newspapers in the excited states of Norte America than if he just stayed in Australia and tried to buy assets in America the same way he was buying them in Great Britain. The reason that he was attracted to send himself into self-imposed exile, I mean, let's face it, you give up your Australian citizenship, we don't fucking want him back, right? Particularly as he uses the money he skims off muddled America, paying to watch Fox News. He uses that money to fund the Australian newspaper and the Weekend Australian newspaper, which is like a mainline injection of right-wing values into Australian society. So anyway, the fact is that 35 years ago, it stopped being against the law to broadcast bullshit to the American middle classes via their free-to-air media and their radio and their newspapers. The reason it stopped being bullshit is because you can make more money packaging advertising and selling the advertising in among exciting bullshit than you can if you restrict yourself to telling the truth. And so, ever since Ronnie Reagan Zapp was the prissy dunce of the excited states of Norte Americano, in his demented, senescent state, authorising billions of dollars to be spent on Star Wars because it was doing well in the movies, and thereby effectively bankrupting the United Soviet Socialist Republic, and granting the world an opportunity for peace and the end of the Cold War, which was subsequently pissed away against the wall by his second vice president, a bloke called George Herbert Walker Bush, whose previous appointment before becoming vice president had been deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Oh, what a digression that I'm just going to have to kind of pass up. But the point is, when Reagan was a senile halfwit and George Herbert Walker Bush was his understudy, Reagan made it lawful to broadcast bullshit to the American muddled classes. And after 35 years of being fed bullshit by the likes of Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones, the American muddled classes were in a perfectly pre-prime condition to be mind-fucked by Tronald Dump. They have fallen for every cheap Barnum and Bailey style of exaggerated showmanship that Adolf Hitler used to get himself elected. And at least Adolf Hitler had studied fucking world politics. He had some vague notion of what he was doing and what he was trying to achieve. Tronald Dump, as far as I can see, from what I can make out, he honestly, genuinely believes that the function of government is to remove all forms of regulation and restriction which prevents big business from making the biggest, fattest, fastest profit possible to imagine. That's what he thinks being the president of America is about. That's how he expects to lead the free world into a broad, sunlit uplands. And as an Australian, sitting here under a gum tree, I am bloody well ashamed to have to admit that Rupert Murdoch was whelped on the same continent that I walk upon with my black and white feet. A phenomenon which occurs because of my habit of sitting on a north-facing veranda with the sun shining on one foot while I'm sitting on the other. But it shows you how easy it is to pass for white. But anyway, for whatever it's worth, speaking as the fool on the hill, the local loudmouth extreme green activist, celibate vegetarian poet, alcoholic analyst of real politics, I have to say that you've really got to chalk it down to Rupert Murdoch and Ronald Reagan as to why America is right now in the situation it's in. Ronald Reagan made it lawful to broadcast bullshit into middle America. And bullshit is more exciting than telling the truth. And the more exciting it is, the more money you can charge for the advertising that goes in the slots between the bullshit than you could charge for the advertising going in the slots between telling the truth. And Rupert Murdoch leapt at that opportunity to make as much money as he could by pumping bullshit into muddled America, and therefore, thus and because, now we have Tronald Dump, the prissy dunce erect of the excited states of Norte Armed Americano. There you go, VBN. That's why I think you're in a position to sit on the sidelines as a fucking tax accountant in Perth and cheer your little heart out because you think the forces of big business are going to bring freedom and prosperity unto all of us. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. I just burped. According to the YouTube drinking community's canons, to make a proper malt liquor video, you have to say rugby every time you burp. So, rugby! Ciao.